Hi, this is Patricia Walls. Welcome to the Enlightened Path podcast. And today I have with you, my dear sister, Dee Light. And she has a ton of stuff to share with us today. But let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an author. She's a speaker, a spouse, a CEO of several companies, mother, an insightful listener. She like dives deep into what's really going on with you when she works with you. And she's been doing this work or different variations of it for about 40 years. She has been a model, a developer, and she's going to talk to us about those creations. She has taught Japanese language and worked a desk job like most of us, or some of us. But so welcome, sister.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank
Where
you.
do we start with all of that? Oh my goodness, that's 40 years of service.
Well, it's like you. I know. And so you start where you start, and then it grows, and then suddenly you can actually condense it all down to what it is that you do that is unique in terms of your own signature. I'm sure that you would relate there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'd have to start. So, I'm in Queensland. I was born in Melbourne. Some people might know Melbourne. And I was raised by a very neat middle class family. So yes, we ended up being the black sheep, as we that one who wouldn't toe the line, but an insatiable appetite to know what makes the world tick and what makes people tick. So my first job, so one of the things that's underpinned everything too is a love of all things Japanese, because I lived in Japan when I was 16. I was an exchange student with Rotary. And so I had the language, which is sort of filtered through everything as I go, which led me to my very first job was a government job with top secret clearance, which I don't necessarily talk about, but I was recruited because of my linguistic skills. Just Japanese, by the way, no others really that we can speak of. But that experience in Japan on my own, really sitting in a Zen temple when you're 16 and you have no other reference points, and then you burst into tears and you have no idea what's going on, is a bit of a wake-up call, I think. So things sort of start there. And I can sort of jump forward. The Japanese part was that I taught Japanese to about 2,500 or more of Qantas's flight crew. So I taught them in the early 90s, but I was using accelerated learning methods. So we were able to introduce a whole lot of energetic stuff into this very, very focused group, 2,500 of them. It was an amazing experience. Because people learn a lot about themselves when they're having to learn something new, right? Especially language. Yeah. But having put that aside, it really, really, really started to come together when I met my husband in 1989. So we've been together nearly 35 years. And I had left my first marriage, very conventional, married to an accountant. That didn't work. And so I was up in Queensland teaching Japanese, and I met my husband. And as I can see, all roads had conspired for us to meet in that absolute moment, that perfect moment when I was 33. And so he was doing body work. He was doing all sorts of, he was wearing Birkenstocks before anybody wore Birkenstocks, So he set the trend. And so I got introduced to this world. He was vegan, like back then. He's not vegan now. And so it was like, oh, wow. And so it was a fast track, but I already knew. And so we did a whole lot of things together. We experienced and we explored and we did different courses together. But our focus was very, very much on the relationship. That was what was always sat at the core of everything. So we've used the relationship as the platform to grow individually to now come to this point of divine union. So yes, I was, and one of the things that he had back then was a deep interest and a phenomenal skill with essential oils. Now, essential oils back then, were not like they are now. And so he developed, we discovered that he had this phenomenal talent for reading the oils and reading the frequency and then reading what bodies required, etc. So long story short, back at the end of the 90s, he set up an apothecary in Noosa. Now, if everybody, Noosa is like a gorgeous beachside place where we were living. It's like, a bit of a mecca for international tourists. So it was a beautiful place to have this apothecary. And then I, being the aesthetic that I am, was able to do everything in like Japanese labeling and sort of wrap it all up, or I did all the calligraphy, and I sort of got to put because our kids were little, so we could sort of work it around that with school. And so I got to bring in my Japanese aesthetic into the shop. So between the two of us, we developed these amazing products with the essential oils, and we had about 150 of them.
Oh, wow.
Right at the hub. And so you could come and have a perfume made or a body oil made, or have a bespoke massage with Clive in the beautiful, we had a friend who was a designer, so it was just like he created this cocoon. It was way ahead of its time when I think now. And out of that, because I had worked in advertising as well, I skipped that bit, but 40 years. And I'd worked on skincare and I'd worked on perfumes, etc. So I knew the dirty back end of everything, I knew the sales pitch, right? So he said to me, when are you going to stop wearing so much makeup? Because I put cover stick. And I said, when you make me, Smarty Pants, a moisturizer that works, right? Smarty Pants. And he went, cool, right, okay. So off he went. And he came back with this rose serum that then morphed into a rose cream as well. We needed a little bit extra in there, shea butter for the winter. And now, Patricia, I'll just say this too. I had a very, you can sense it. I'm well balanced now in masculine and feminine, but I had a very strong drive. So I was quite masculine in my capacity to make things happen. Not very good at receiving.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
So, sort of trying to drive everything, And so very cleverly, what he did was he through the power of these roses, he was able to, like water on the stone, chip away at me until I remember there was one day where I just went, oh, I was like I rolled over and went, oh. And in that moment, there was this sense of like, and this is what the roses do, of this frequency, I received me. And in that moment, everything just opened. And it was like the angel sang, it was hallelujah. Oh, God, she's not pushing, she surrendered. Oh, and I remember him going, oh, thank God you're here. So that took a long time. And so therefore, because I'd also been this intense dieter for 23 years, I dieted from the age of 10, I just got to control everything. And so I just surrendered to me. And so after that, there was this, I couldn't diet. It was like this sense of freedom and liberation that I'm just going to be the fullness of me. And so it really was an hallelujah moment. And so what I did, and then Clive came to me one day, and the children were still little, and he said, so, this is great. You need a husband like this. He says, so I'm not here. I'm dead. What are you going to do?
I do need like that.
What are you going to do if I'm not here? Because I didn't even have my own bank account. You know, the children were little. I'd surrendered that much where I went, it was like, oh, right, okay. So I think he felt we've got to even it up here now a little bit. And I thought, wow. And then I think it was a week or so later, because I get taps on the shoulder. Every now and then they get the tap on the shoulder. And was like, you're going to go. I think it was an Easter. You're going to go into the shop and you're going to sit there and I'm going to give you the plan. So I took out like a mind map and I got the plan because there was a product in this gorgeous cream, in this rose cream, that at the time was pretty much the only brand in the world that was saying, we think you're gorgeous the way we are. We're not going to fix you. We're not going to tap you and, you got to be, all this sort of thing. We're just going to honor you and ignite that inner radiance in you genuinely, not through hype, but with the best rose oil in the world. And I thought, God, I'm onto something here. Long story short, I had my first company within 6 weeks because my accountant went, right, I'm in. And off we went. And that sort of led me, we launched in Hong Kong and Joyce Beauty, we got compared against all the major brands and we came out better than. The only thing was that we didn't have made in France written on our bum. And we're expensive. And we needed to be because of the quality of rose oil that's in there. Anyway, so that and the rose serum. And then the rose serum itself is for men. It's the only thing Clive's actually used on his. I mean, you get a man wearing roses on his bald head because he does something different to the energy of the rose where it's really magnetic. And so I was like, oh, this rose serum is for lovers and for lovers of roses. So it sits at the very core of our energetic divine union is this rose oil. You see, we've used it every day now for coming up for 30 years. So anyway, it was challenging. I don't think it was easy. It was challenging because I was working up against a flow of an industry that went, we don't want you here.
Right.
No, you. So I had to keep going. And then Clive was coming across new oils and there was some lotuses. He came across some lotuses and there was like just the tiniest amount made of this pink lotus. So he made me a perfume out of it and we still had the shop at that point in time. And I was mentioning what we did with someone and they said, God, if those oils are so special like you're talking about, why are they still in ordinary bottles? You need to be in jewels. You need to be there, and I went, yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll do that. Right, okay. Because I've never been one to limit myself. And so I thought, right, okay, jewels, we need to house you in jewels, right? I don't know how we're going to do that. And then a year later, this Italian jeweler came into my life through a group of people that we were working with. And I remember going to one of his showings and wearing some of his jewels. And I went to him and our eyes met across the room and I walked up and he said, oh, darling. And I said, yes, we must talk. He said, yes, we must talk. I was like, wow, okay. So he became a friend. I'm going to jump a whole lot forward here because I was like, okay, so I set up the company. I tried to raise capital. I remember being in a very big, huge capital raising breakfast that people had, come to, and I had 5 minutes to sell. the idea of this whole company, because it was like, we're going to take the highest frequencies of nature with the highest, sort of like genius of a perfumer and the creators and the gems, and we're going to put it all together ethically. And we're going to put it there so that when you roll on our perfumes with pearls, by the way.
Oh my.
Yeah. You're going to receive that energy to your body. And here I had 5 minutes to get that across, and I'm dressed to the hilt, and everything, and it just went. And it was like one man came to me later, oh, my wife would like your perfumes. I was like, oh, God, I think we missed that one. So what I learned, this is really interesting. So what I learned was we were operating at a frequency where we couldn't be seen or felt or heard or received. However, we couldn't lower that frequency.
No.
So we've had to wait until now to really, as we've crossed over and here we are speaking now, crossing over to this time. So I'm nearly 68, Kai's nearly 65. We are just hitting our mark. How cool is that? Anyway.
Well, but the frequency really, our humanity, I'm going to say the collective consciousness, really came up. What is it? At least since 2012, right?
Yep. So we actually started the company in 2012.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. And so it was like, okay, so I've just got to keep going. And every now and then, Saint Germain would drop in a tiny little white feather somewhere just to remind me that he was still here and watching over me. The book arrived in 2010 for all of this. So that arrived. That was the book there. That's a whole other story, but that leads into this because, and I'll come back to it, to simply talk about, for me, my role here is embodiment. My role here is to really help people release all the judgments, all the resistance that they have to being in a physical body, to actually embrace every single cell in their body, because you can't hold light anywhere where you're resisting anything. So we women judge ourselves, our physical bodies, so we hold the light at bay. So everything I'm about, being held and supported by the divine masculine, who's chipped away so that I can embody that, is all about that, is all about feeling and the body and frequency, and therefore being able to connect higher and hold more light, and therefore be well. Neither of us are in any drugs or have any, we don't have a doctor, because we've chipped away with the oils working with us all the time. And so now we move forward and, thought, okay, so when are we going to be able to house these things in jewels? And back in 2013, I started to learn to dowse using a pendulum, a little $5 crystal one. And the first time I picked it up, Patricia, it didn't move for 20 minutes. It's like, you're going to move. You're going to move. Yeah, you're going to move. No. So that was part of my process as well. I was like, no, will you get out of your head? Here was I, a straight A student at school who was renowned for her intellect, and I had to leave it all behind because it wasn't important anymore. So I was like, okay, got to park that. And as soon as I learned to park that, the thing would move. So I started to learn to dowse. And because I have a mathematical brain, it started to work out in geometry and figures. And then I read Power versus Force with David Hawkins, and I saw the map of consciousness, and I was like, oh, everything has a frequency. Everything. Oh, and if I'm really still, I can measure it all. Oh, wow. So I started to become very proficient in this. And so when my mother passed away in 2017, I didn't I didn't follow what my sister said I should do, which was to go and invest in property because I would be an old pensioner if I didn't. I went and invested in the pendulums instead, as you do. So thanks, Mum. And so I reconnected with my friend, my jeweler friend, who was renowned pearl jeweler, and his colleague was staying with him at the time who wasn't well. And I sat down with him and I said to him, have you ever designed a pendulum? And he went, oh, I was just thinking about that 3 days ago. Wow. He said, oh, but, it's, I don't know if I can do that. Everybody cuts you down to a certain price and it's all this sort of thing. I said, what if you could create to your heart's content with no price limit? What would you create then? And he went, oh. I said, that's the design I want. So I did give him a budget, but it was like, oh, okay. So in came my first pendulum, which was the very first prototype, which was Venus. And at the same time, I'd been having many readings with this lady called Raya that some people might know. She's a US colleague. And so they started to come in and tell me what I'm doing and what the next step is and the next step is, and my Venusian connections and Lady Venus and Son of Kamara and Saint Germain talking to me, etc. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, this all makes sense. Yeah, it's cool. We're cool with this. So, and then the other pendulums started to arrive. So in came Arcturus, in came Orion, in came Helios, in came Vesta, in came Andromeda, in came Shambhala. And so in came Divine Love. And so as each one arrived, some of them there are other pendulum holders, they've been bought, they've been moved on. I started to grow in my capacity and my understanding of what it is that I'm here to do. So this is my legacy, is to work with bejeweled instruments. And this is Shambhala here, this one here.
They are so incredible. And each one has its own vibration, its own area
geometry.
of expertise. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that you'll see here. Yeah. You ask where the perfumes fit in. Has an internal little perfume vial.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So the bigger ones, most of them have an internal little perfume vial.
And so is there also an essence assigned to each pendulum?
No. So when a pendulum holder arrives, they sit with Clive and then they work out their own perfume that they're going to work with. And you can either put a few drops within there or you just anoint yourself before you work with the pendulum, I've had a couple who put gemstones or any little talisman in this secret container within the pendulum because it's, it's yours, right? And so they began to arrive, and then it was like, okay, I would have a reading and then in would come Helios or in would come Andromeda and say exactly what each pendulum was for. I was like, wow, this is huge. And so the more I used them, and then when COVID hit, it was like, oh, now I'm going to use them with people online. And then I realized that the energy actually goes global. It doesn't matter where I am, but it's also, they said, we're receiving it too. Because as above, so below. And so I kept on getting this encouragement because these are actually, like Shambhala brings in the paradise codes of the new earth. So with each one, it was like, okay, I'm going to hold the energy of this and I'm going to focus with my charts and I'm going to go through each of the charts if I'm working with an individual, and we're going to defrag. And we're going to take you back to your factory setting, and then we're going to download the higher codes with each of these pendulums, depending on what it is that you need in a particular session, with the sole aim of getting your frequency up over 500, up through that doorway so that you are out of the control of everything else that's going on.
Right. So can I break in here?
Yes.
You and I had a talk recently. Most of us who work with pendulums, we've been taught to dowse, okay, to receive answers, to get answers and direction using pendulums, right?
Yeah.
It was only really in the last, for me personally, it was only really in the last year, maybe even less, that I learned to clear energy with the pendulum, right? And so I was amazed whenever you were talking about your process in doing that. And like you said, removing, defragging, and then rebuilding. Because on the average, people are not taught that they can do more with their pendulums, right? We were taught you can only get answers.
Yeah. So yes, I can do a yes or no, or we can take a company structure. This is where it's moving to. This is really exciting work, or a relationship, whatever the entity is, and it is all in the strength of the clarity of the question, as you know, with any pendulum work. And so I have to be in a place of absolute tune in, because they give me the question. And to prepare myself to be in that empty place, and I can check where my frequency is, but I can also check, is my ego at 0? And if it's not, I'll get it to 0 so that I'm completely out of my own way. And then they'll give me the question. So to give an example, this is the exciting work that can be done within a business. If you have a founder or a CEO or someone who's willing to take themselves up over that 500 mark, and I'm talking as a reference point, we all know that means the heart then is open, and that's the governing within that field, to hold your frequency up over that, right? So if you have a founder who's willing to be that, then they can hold the frequency for all of that business and that company, and everybody who comes into that, you create a 5D higher vortex to actually draw to you people who are willing to shift and change within the alchemy of the business. So whatever it is that you're offering, you're bringing people to you that you're going to help. By virtue of them working with you, they're going to raise their frequency as well. So that's the new. And so what you can do with the pendulums is you can look in as to where all they pick up the glitches. So they'll pick up the glitches in the field, and then it depends which chart you're going to. So you'll clear all of that, and you'll clear all of that. And as you know, like as I said, you speak light language, I speak it with my hands and the geometry, because I'm seeing like feeling the geometry as we go. And there's a glitch over there. I'm going to feel it. Right. Okay. We'll call in this one and we'll clear it. And then we'll get to a point of like, okay, now we can bring in the higher codes because we've cleared the field. And then we'll bring in Helios, this one here, brings in the golden architecture of your divine plan.
So can you show us that one again? Helios, so people can see Helios. How beautiful they are.
Yeah.
Helios.
Yeah, so that one's yellow sapphires and pearls and diamonds and beryl. This one actually, Helios, I work very closely with Helios, has a sun disk in it. So if I take out the perfume vial, has a little sun disk in the middle of it.
That's incredible work. Yeah.
A phenomenal work. We're talking the best artisans in the world. And that was what was open to me, is, okay, so here we go, have the best manufacturers. And so that's, have the best box maker in the world. It's like, oh, okay. So that's sort of like because I kept the intention, and I never, ever, ever watered it down, because I can't water it down.
Right.
And so each step along the way, the next bit revealed itself, and the next bit revealed itself, and the next bit revealed itself. And so I've been able to develop from this transmissions, and that I've now recorded, so that you can have a releasing anxiety transmission. You can do releasing birth trauma transmission. There's a divine union transmission. There's a thing called the catapult program. That's five big transmissions that just unlocks, first of all, getting the relationship with your body going first, and then secondly, helping you have very specific little circuit breakers that keep you in that 500 resonance and above, so that you can stabilize yourselves in that energy. And so by the end of this program, which is all online, you do it at your own pace, you are holding 500 and above consistently in every area of your life. Because every time you go back to one of those transmissions, it's fresh. You receive again.
So I like that it's basically on demand. Like you said, you go at your own pace.
Well, there's no time, space, or dimension from the dimension that we're operating these from.
Right.
I've had some people look at them and go, oh my God, this is Lemurian technology from a very long time ago. Who are you? And you go, oh, okay. I'm sure you can relate to that. It's like, oh, okay, just normal Australian women. I'm just doing what I do. But I know because and it's, and I will say this, that there are people come along, go, oh, I want one of those. And it's like, no, it doesn't want to be with you. So they pick their owners because it's all been set before we came, and so for me, it is a privilege to do this work, but it's also a great responsibility to be able to caretake. It's like being a conductor and having to work with all of the elements within this and create a symphony, and also get out of my own way because it's nothing to do with me, and yet it's going to come through me.
Right.
And so it's and to be able to stand in that and not shrink back as well. But partly that is, I'm in that position because of my relationship that anchors everything I do, protects everything I do. I once said to somebody, so my idea of a relationship, and this is just mine, okay, so this is my sense, is like that I can fall off a cliff backwards and I know I will be caught. To have that level of trust, to have that level of, to be seen to the depths of me and be totally accepted as who I am and celebrated for that after 35 years of being together, I realize is very rare.
It is extremely rare.
It is extremely rare. And so the capacity of the human that I'm with, I have often said to people, I don't even know him yet. It's like, wow. And so now we've thought we need to actually do some work together for people, because there aren't many models, or, particularly for the next generation. How do you do this? So with his capacity with the oils, and having had the body work, because you've been a body worker for 20 years, he has the capacity to just sit and read your body. And then my capacity with what I do, and with business as well, and with the pendulums, between the two of us, there's this beautiful synergy that goes like that. And as you know, wisdom and humor and humility all come with age. Someone once said to me, you will, now this is very particular to Australia, but you will age like a Grange Hermitage. Now, you don't know what a Grange Hermitage is. It's like the best red wine. And I was only 27 at the time, and I thought, oh, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to age and I'm going to be mysterious and deep and, sort of slightly unpredictable, a little bit of an anomaly, very expensive. That's sort of, I'm like, wow, what a great thing to say to a woman, and so to be in a relationship that wants that to happen, the richness of that to evolve on every level, because he gets to experience that.
Right.
So there it is. So that's that to me, it's almost like we hold a template for that as to how that can now be, and so there it is. There's a lot of rich pickings within that. It's, for me, it is like, where do we start? The first thing we do is we fall in love totally with our body, because then our body will tell us what it wants to eat, how it wants to be touched, what it wants to put on its skin, how it wants to be dressed, when you're honoring it to that degree, which means that the marketers have no hold over you whatsoever at all. And it simplifies your life enormously, because you don't go anywhere you don't want to go. You're not going to hang out with any people you don't want to hang out with. And so it's a refinement that comes with a higher frequency. It's almost like you can, that sound of the glass, the fine crystal. So the higher you go. But coupled with that has to be that sense of connection and integrity and boundaries and ethics and the highest possible expression for the highest good of all. So that takes discipline. So
yeah, because it involves a lot of deprogramming.
Yes,
a lot of deprogramming.
And we helped each other deprogram. And Clive was the very first one I worked with the pendulums. I said he gave me permission to work with him, and that was a phenomenal experience for him, because he'd go, I wasn't down there, or he'd come and he'd say, oh, when I was really grumpy, half an hour ago, where was I? And I would show him, and he'd go, oh, actually, you're right. And so he couldn't deny things anymore, but he trusted me enough to give him an accurate reading. And so we could gradually bring him up. And in the process, this is the beautiful thing, in the process of me working with him, I was working on myself.
Right.
Because we can't get out of the way. This is the beauty. If you are a practitioner at that level, offering that level of service without ego, then you yourself are receiving all the time. That's exactly the geometry for this dimension. And so, yeah.
So, interesting story about the book. Tell us about the book.
Well, there was a really big turning point in our relationship back in 2009. And I won't go into all the very depths of it, but it was a real, turning point. And it could have gone either way. Anyway, it went to a point where we either could have split up, or we had to go to a whole new level. And I remember, and this is deeply personal, but I remember weeks later lying in bed and thinking, God, what is going on with my back? I have no idea. I can't. And I said to our son, I can't get you to school this morning. I can't make you lunch. I don't know what's going on. And I said, could you just come out with me for a moment? And I sat outside, and I just had all this stuff going on. And then suddenly there was this sense like these etheric wings just came out. And he just said, it's okay, Mum, I see them. He was 12.
Wow.
And it's never been spoken of since. And he won't listen to this. We're all good. But it was like, okay. And then I sat upstairs like a cormorant, sort of like having to dry them out. And I went, oh, something happened. So later on in one of these readings I had with the team, and they went, oh, yeah, your higher self organised all of that. You had to go through that really rough patch so that you would grow. I was like, oh, thank you. Anyway, from that, as it is. But what this did ignite in me, and this is, I'm sure some of the women listening will just, I, for the very first time, got angry. Yeah, I got angry, really angry.
Right.
And so accessing this anger, because I'd been such a good girl, I felt it like a gurney come up through my body, like a fire hose, and it just cleansed me. It was, and I speak about it in the book, and I was able to stand there like, I am here. It was the most phenomenal experience of because I had other women sticking knives in my back. I had other women wanting my husband. Okay. I had other women wanting the life that I'd created for myself, being so nice to my face and not behind my back. So it's like I had to claim that.
Right.
And once I did, that went away. And so it was a year later, I'm, 1 o'clock in the morning, I get woken up and I've got all this. I was like, and it's like, you are going to write a book, go downstairs, book a hotel room. I went down there, booked a hotel room close by. So I get up in the morning and I said, I'm going to write a book. He went, oh, see, that's great. Yeah, today. Oh, okay. Let me go to the market. He went into, all right, support mode. I'll get all the food. You take, right, where are you staying? Okay, not too far. Need to be there by 12. Okay, I'll tell the kids not to call you. Got to turn your mobile off. Right, you're going to write a book. When do I need to pick you up? In 3 days' time. Good. No question. You're going to write a book. Yeah. So I got into the hotel room. It was like, I'm going to write a book. What's the book about? I have no idea. Boom. 30,000 words, 3 days. I was writing at 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God, this is so much fun. So it was later that the chapters came through. And it was the story, it's called The Gorgeous Revolution, and it's a book about women and their bodies and how women compete, but it's also a book about sacred union and sacred relationship. There is parenting in there, there's relationships with food, relationships with aging, but it's all about stepping away from being your small you into your big self. And so there's some cracker one-liners in there that I was like, wow, where did that one come from? And it's funny. It's funny too, because
that's what happens when you're channeling, right? You just go, oh, that's nice.
And then I read it. When I came home, I read it. He was having a glass of red wine. He cried. He went, oh my God, this is a book for men too. Because, women need to receive the love from their men, because the men see that they're beautiful. And I'm not saying all relationships, but, women criticize themselves or, try and do too much with all of this. And the man just goes, you're beautiful. Can't you hear that? Can't you receive the gifts I want to give you? So it's a book about that. It's a book about that level of surrender. It is a funny book. And so it wasn't until 2017 that I could publish it, because I took it to a few publishers and they went, oh, no, we're not having this book. No, because the interesting was the men publishers wanted to get it published, but the women went, no, we're not doing this.
That's odd, isn't it?
It's going to rock the boat. So I was like, okay, all right. So I did an audio version and then I've got the hard copy. But I did a TEDx talk from it. I got invited, so I did a talk,
Oh, my goodness. So people can see. So whenever I put the links, will you give me the link for the TEDx talk?
I'll put that in, yeah. I'll just put a little provisor in there that about 2 minutes, a few minutes into it, I forget my words. Because I'll just tell you, with a TED talk, you have to be word perfect. You can't go off script.
Really?
You can't. Well, no, because they've all agreed to what it is that you can say. So you can't go off script.
Oh, I could never be on TED Talk.
This was back on 2013. So I practiced it for 2 months. And the only one that could hear it was the dog. So the dog would sit on a chair for 2 months going, thank God. Great dog. And so when I delivered it at Noosa, I got into it, and then it was like it just went blank, and I've got no. And then something just went, oh, it was like, right. And it kicked in, and I went, boom, and boom, I'm here. And off we went. It was like, yay, we're here.
And the
And it was
wings
all
popped
about,
out.
yeah, they did. The wings must have popped out. And it was a sense of like, because the whole thing's about how we women tie ourselves up in knots trying to look beautiful with all the things that we do, and we lose it all along the way. And it's our radiance only comes through in our generosity of spirit and our gratitude and our acceptance and our surrender. And it's that sort of, you got to deliver that in 10 minutes. You got to refine it. But I got a standing ovation. So, and funny, it was the men who came to me afterwards at tea time going, my wife has to read this book. My wife has to read this book. My wife has to read this book. So there are so many men out there that are going, my wife, like, if she could just hear me say how beautiful she is. This is because having worked in advertising, I know you sit on the other side of that mirror, that one-way mirror in those qualitative groups, you go for the underbelly. What is the one thing that will get them to buy our product?
Right.
That they are not enough.
Right, exactly.
That there is something to fix. So I come from, what if there was never anything wrong with you? And that's where we start.
So what about publishing? Did you self-publish, or is it?
I self-published.
So where will people find it? Will they find it on
They
Amazon?
can only get it off my website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, if it's in the US and they want the hard copy, then they're going to have to pay the postage for that, or they can get the audio. And yes, it's like, I know I didn't do the whole Amazon thing. I self-published because I wanted it to be beautiful. This is a Venusian expression of book, and so the book had to have, it had to have bees in it, and so it's like, this is gold as well, and so they're like the little bee sort of, it had to have sort of all little hints of it just had to be the right expression of how I wanted it to be, with some beautiful photographs in there, and some poetry as well that I got. I mean, I'll just, this was beautiful from M. Claire, I think, who was married or was still married to Neil Donald Walsh. I got her permission. And in this one, she says, to love yourself, start here. Take your own hand, put it to your lips, then lay the soft of your cheek to the round of your shoulder, where the faint musk of enduring dreams and the labours of your life perfume you. It's a start. It's a beginning. Now the ache in your heart has a surface. And that's where we start.
That's beautiful.
That one. Yeah. So yes. So it's a book about reigniting that light, your unique light, your own signature, right, within the 50 trillion cells. And there it's like, so what do you then, and coming back to the work that we collectively do as light workers, then you can anchor your light. And when we have enough anchoring at this level of frequency, then it flips. It's a collective. And so that's my call out, is to women to be able to hold the strength, but to hold their level of light and vulnerability and beauty at the same time that is unique to them, without fear.
Right. Without the programs.
And without the programs. Yeah. So the pendulums help remove the programs. So there you go.
How many pendulums have you designed in total?
So far there's been 16. The 17th is in production at the moment. I have another 6 or so designs in the pipeline. The sense is that there might be 144. We'll see. I keep moving along. Not 144 designs, but 7 of each. There's already 3 of the Divine Love one. This one here is Andromeda. Oops. This one here. And so the energy of that one is just phenomenal. Working
and what
with
are
the
the
male
stones
ego.
in that one?
So that's diamonds, rubies. This is all mother of pearl in there. And this here is Whitby Jet, is the black. It's like coming from the void.
Right.
So this is the energy coming, and phenomenal love waves using this one as well. So Patricia, I'm just learning as I go. Like I don't have all this huge depth of knowledge. I learn as I go, and I get shown as I go, and it's all experiential for me. Like the other day, so I have this thing about white feathers every now and then, one will land in. So I'm driving home from the beach, and we have these weird clouds, as everybody knows, going on in the world at the moment. So we had our, weird clouds all happening. But there'd been a clear space, like a clear blue. And in that was exactly what looked like a white feather, to the point where I pulled over and I took a photograph of it. By the time I'd got home, it was virtually almost over our house. And it was as though someone had painted perfect white feather in the sky. I was gobsmacked. So I called Clover. I said, if that ain't a sign something's about to shift, I don't know what is. He went, yeah, I'm with you. So it's like, oh. So every now and then things will happen. And I'm speaking in this way because we all get these signs. This is not just me. We all just need to stop and look, and they're there, and they're loud as anything when they land. And so it was like, okay, good. I'll just keep going. So so what's the next step? And then what's the next step? And what's the next step? Because I feel that so many of us at this level are pushing the evolutionary edge. We are the edge. We are the ones creating the new. It's flowing through us. So there's no other template. You can't go and read a book on this. You have to really, really listen and bring through that unique expression that is yours alone.
Well,
for the highest good of all.
Do you know what template is, right? Template is a program of suppression.
Ah, well, I won't use that word anymore.
When someone gives you a template, they are saying this is the way it should be, and that does not lend to connection, expansion, freedom. Evolution. I mean, it's okay to have a place to start, right? But when someone gives you the plans, the old masculine is how they had explained to me at first, the old masculine blueprint of having discipline, having steps, you must do it this way every time. There's no room for expansion. There's no room for freedom and, all of the laws.
The irony is, if you apply that to a business and they say, give me your 5-year plan. Because if you're working with those evolutionary creational energies, there is not such a thing. You're going to have to talk to it. It will talk to you, and you're going to have to ride along as you go. And other people are going to have to trust this process because it's not going to fit into anything that we've ever known before.
Right.
And so when I talk, when I talk about, Helios bringing in the divine plan, it's for me, it's like the highest potential expression, so that it's going to drop into your field so that you can recognize when something starts to match that resonance because it feels light. So that's the way you head. But it's never going to show you the complete how, and it's not going to show you exactly what. I don't know what all of this looks like. If you'd have said back 2012 you're going to be making bejeweled pendulums, I'd have gone, oh yeah, but I am. So what will we be doing in 10 years?
Try going to the banker and they ask you for a 5-year plan and tell the banker, well, do you know about timelines and possibilities?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way I can explain this to you.
Yeah, that's what
this will happen, or this will happen, or this will happen. You know?
But I'll just tell you,
give me
the
5
plan,
million and I will make one of those happen.
Yes. And it'll be better than you ever imagined.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And it's like, but because of the impulse coming through you and the strength and the clarity with which that comes through you, that it must on some level be real. And I put it this way, like, I'm similar age to you. If not now, when? If we're not going to bring it now, when are we going to bring it? I mean, hello. It's like, really? I'm going to bring, and I used to as a little girl, because this used to really annoy my mother. I felt that if I was all of me, I would blow up the world. I used to feel there was so much of me because she used to say, you're just too much. It's just too much. So I'd go, okay, I'll just, I'll stay inside the box until no, we're out of the box. And it's like, oh, here we go. This is it's the largest of all of us. And then there's more. There's more and there's more.
But you can look at that in a negative or a positive, right? So in a negative, she kept you suppressed, but in a positive, she implanted that thought in you that said, I'm bigger than all of this.
Yes. Yes.
So, wow.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. She did you a great favor in that.
She did. And I'm enormously grateful. And I get the nod from her because I found out later that as the pendulums all came through, she was very happy, as is my father. My father died when I was 12. So, yes. And everything is that, isn't it? When we look at it from that side. And so that's the invitation, is to be all of that. I mean, so this is what I do. And I'm not saying that, because my life isn't unicorn, parts of my life. It isn't unicorns and rainbows. There are all sorts of things going on. But I know that whatever's going on in the world in the lower dimensions feeds off our grief, feeds off our fear, feeds off all of that.
Right.
So I have made a choice that you will not get 1 ounce of that from me. Okay, so if I'm going through grief, I will transmute that grief into a love bigger than it all. So I'm always using that energy to transmute it, to go bigger, to go bigger, to go bigger, to go bigger. Because you can't feed off that. But that is the transformational energy that we require. So I won't, and, not to say that the little thoughts don't, the little thoughts, all of those things come in and you just go, no, you will not have an ounce of me.
Right.
And you can feel literally your whole feel go like, boom.
You can feel the static, but, we are still in a third dimensional dense body. We are still subject to frequencies around us, but we just have to dip, like you're doing, right? You just have to say, oh, I hear it. I feel that. Okay, we're just going to raise the frequency a bit,
Yeah. I've got to do whatever it takes now to expand, to get the solid, under my feet again. Right. And these can all sort of be direct family situations or other situations that happen because we are humans in a human body and we get to experience emotion and we can't escape that. So
we have
how
to
do
have contrast? Yeah.
We have to have the contrast. So what do we do with the contrast? We expand it even further. We have to be the alchemists. This is the transmutation that happens. And it's a choice. And it is, it takes courage. And so therefore, the moment you step into that, your heart is open. It's always about checking, is this open or closed? You know, so it's got to stay open no matter what, you know, which is the challenge in this day and age.
I call it entertainment.
Well, you know, we can observe. We are now at that place where we can observe. And I know if I buy into it or resist it, or, you know, because I sometimes watch the news and I'm pretty much across what's happening in the world. It's like, wow. And, you know, my head just sort of, and it's like, okay, this is just part of what is coming up to be seen. Don't feed it. Don't resist it, but observe it. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't live in this la-la land, because you're going to transmute any of that energy if you put your head in the sand. You've got to stand in the fire and not shrink back. That's a good one.
Because, yeah, when they talk about the dimensional realities, you know, that's when you get to that level of dimensional reality that you can say, I see that happening over there. I don't know why y'all chose that, but, you know, you must have chosen it for contrast or for experience or for whatever reason. And you know, have fun with that.
We are, you know, and I do, you know, Steiner's work, anthroposophy, different things like that. There's the sense of like, this is a school. This is a school. But I truly believe that some of us have well, we have been here many times before, but we did come this time to actually go, no, I'm actually going to choose to be here, to be all of that. And yet we didn't know that when we came down here, we'd still have to go through everything that we took to get to the, maybe that wasn't part of the contract. But how could we relate to people if we had not consciously experienced so much of that? You can't.
Right. You have to have a source of reference. Absolutely.
You do. And so therefore, for me, being this age, it's a bonus now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I've lived it in my bones. You know, and it's like, you want to argue with this? I don't think so. When you're speaking from that level of truth.
You can't argue this. What talk to us about the program that you're formulating, you and Clive, your husband Clive. You talked about a program, a divine
well, we're still formulating it. So one of the transmissions up on the website is called the Divine Union. And so that one, working with the pendulums, is to be able to clear, you know, the residue of everything that's gone on before, take you back to that 0 point, and then bring in the magnetic codes around you to start and to connect to them as well, so that you'll call them in. Or if you have one, to actually bring it so that it's more aligned, because 1 and 1 equals 3. And I'll say this too, that, and this is part of the challenging thing, is the chicken or the egg, but to have a divine union, one actually has to be whole first.
Right.
So do that work first. So to the point where you can actually welcome somebody in who's also at that level, and then the real work starts. So what we're looking at doing, and we haven't got a format for it as yet, but is to, and we'll look at doing it here first in Australia, is to sit with, again, in person if we can, And just do question answer about what it is to get to this point in a relationship. What does that look like? And have those intimate questions from male, female and because I've got a few, I've gone out to some of my clients and said, so, and they're in their 30s, what would you love to know? And they're like, oh my God, you're going to do it. And I said, yeah, we're going to do it. Okay, I need to know from a man, a more mature man, what he looks for in a wise woman. I need to know that intimacy, how does intimacy look later on within a marriage? How does sex look? You know, how do you make it work 24/7 so that you actually both are really excited when the other one walks in the room? How do you get to that place? Because we don't see it out there. You know, this whole idea of monogamy is like, you know, it's a transactional universe. It's like swipe left, swipe right, that thing, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all of that. And it's like, so what did it take to bring you to your knees? Within that, how did you navigate children? How did you navigate sleepless nights? How did you navigate financial difficulties? How did you navigate working together? How did you navigate, you know, the maintenance of the sense of freedom, that I am completely free. I can go anywhere in the world and do whatever I want to do. And the reason I'm monogamous is because I'm with a man who recognized that I can do whatever I want to do. I'm not going to be with anybody else. That's the paradox of it. I want to be with you because you allow me to be all of me.
Right.
So how do you get to that place? And as they've all said, there are no models out there. And so that's the exciting thing for us now, to be that for the next generation, to do it with humor, to do it with clarity, to do it with realness. None of this fluffy, woo-woo spiritual stuff, although it's all embedded in there. Obviously it is, but not to use that language. You know, one of the things my husband said to me, he said, your mother's still in the bed with us. You're going to have to work your relationship out with your mother. I was like, oh, you're right. You know, to have that level of, it's either me or her. And so now I work with so many younger women who are in that situation. And it's like, okay, how do you get to that point where you're not being that? You're not being your mother's good girl, or you're not under her influence. Because when you're with your husband in the most intimate, or your partner in the most intimate of moments, it's just the two of you in that sacred space. How do we go there? So there's work to be done. It's you can listen to as many Instagram wonderful things, and you know, they do it so beautifully these days, you know, on TikTok, and it's like, wow, that's mesmerizing. Yeah, great. How do I do that? How do I come back from the amazing cacao ceremonies and the circles and the drumming and, you know, like all that sort of stuff on the weekend, and I feel so mad, and then I come back to my partner and fuck, he hasn't done the dishes. Sorry, I swear, but I swear sometimes. Oh,
my favorite word. Yeah. I've
come back in this beautiful space, and I've come back to this. How do I deal with that stuff?
Exactly.
So that it doesn't end up in a fight. You know. So there's so much work to be done. But we're going to approach it in a way that's liberating for us, that's fun for us. Just as we spoke before, to be in a place where we can just easily share with people in an open space what this is, without making it a workshop, without making it hard, and be open and available. And then for those that want to actually do the work, then the pendulums are available to help shift the frequency of everything. But let's give a possibility.
Do I hear a book?
Apparently there are more, but hey, I'll just have to wait for the tap at the shoulder at 1 o'clock in the morning because I ain't going to sit down and slog through writing a book. No, it might have to be another hotel experience. Well, I don't know. It's just like, I love reading. I love writing. I love it when it comes through. I love it. As you know, it is the most liberating feeling. It's like having a really great birth. It's just...
Well, you're so good with your words, though, that it would just seem that that would be easy for you just to flow that, just to channel that book, except that this wouldn't be a book that you wrote. It would be a book that you wrote, you
Well,
and God.
There's a chapter in the book, and I don't know how long we've got left. Have we gone for over an
We've
hour?
got as long as we need. Yeah.
Well, there's a chapter in the book that I could read right now called The Potency. It's all about relationship. It would take me maybe 10 minutes. I just have to get a bit more glass of water. So I guess I would ask people if they've managed to stay with us this long, but they sit back and close their eyes for a moment.
Okay, I'm going to mute.
Okay, and I'll just read. Okay. I call it the potency of singularity. Sacred relationship is just that, sacred. And to have one, both must stand in the fire and not shrink back. Sacred relationship within marriage is the fulcrum for spiritual growth in the express lane. Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to get rocky in here. For all the escape routes just closed. No back doors, no hidden chutes, no sudden outs. Commitment with a capital C. And monogamy today is a very outdated term. The very sound of it is heavy. It implies lack of choice. For some, a death sentence. Science says we are, after all, not wired to be with the same sexual partner for the rest of our lives. So the term is now outdated, obsolete, kaput. I have come up with something else. The potency of singularity. Let me explain. I enjoy sex. In fact, it is wonderful. It's a place that is deeply nourishing and intimate for me. It's liberating, deeply sensual, connecting, joyful, and fun. Not always ground-shattering, but for me, a place where I give of myself. And I give of myself to me and of myself to another. Before my husband, I explored a variety and healthy sex life. I have no hang-ups, no guilt. I enjoy sex. Some say, what is the big deal? True. Sex is happening everywhere, all the time, in every moment, all over the place. An enjoyable pastime, fun between two people. I get that. Bodies like it. For me, it is something else. I desire to help push the bounds of consciousness, to evolve a different way of being on the planet. So what if I could have sex with someone from a place of deep intimacy and freedom, no baggage, no past or future, just now? But what if I'd been with that person for decades? So that our bodies knew each other to a degree of vulnerability and gratitude that was palpable. What would be possible then? What might I learn about my body? What is possible beyond time? What is possible when two beings connect in the same exquisite space? What might be there, I ask? For I don't yet know. I don't know what is yet to come as I reveal more of me to someone who knows me already so well. It's like going through the eye of a needle, perhaps touching God, perhaps being God. Difficult, but possible. To go there, one must travel light. No guilt, no regrets, no shame. One must be willing to go where no one has gone before. What ecstasy can come from a level of intimacy between two where no past exists, yet where bodies have been together for lifetimes. I wonder, a paradox surely to be posed if there was one. So for me, this is what I choose, a level of intimacy, communion, and oneness so exquisite I can only shut my eyes to imagine what it tastes like, feels like, and smells like, sounds like. And where will my body go? What secrets will it divulge? Where will I travel? What strange energetic landscapes will we explore together as one? What can I gift? What can I receive when the walls truly come down? I wonder. So for me, I choose to be with just one person. That is what works for me. I could be with many, but just one will push the boundaries so much further. For that to be, I must let go even more and more. I cannot choose for him. In fact, it would be fruitless to set boundaries for another. My husband is his own master. He now chooses what will work for him. But the vulnerability I am willing to be is what I require in another. The potency of singularity, to plumb the depths of what is possible with another who wants to go there too. Let the walls come down from a place of choice. And what man, given the invitation of bliss, the level of caring and comfort, the level of trust and vulnerability, would not want that too? For it is the return to ourselves we are looking for, and it is the return to ourselves we will be. Evolutionary partnerships are changing the planet in business and in the home, and sacred marriages will change the way we experience love and possibility. For nothing is forever, for forever does not exist. We do not own anyone. We cannot take them with us. We cannot promise a lifetime of commitment. Things change. But we can commit to be all we are right now and more, and to watch each other's back, to be there when we falter, there when we doubt. Lean in together to the evolutionary edge. Lean in, hold each other tight, and set each other free. As Khalil Gibran said, and let the winds of heaven dance between you. I cannot hear the voice my husband hears when he quietly asks for him. Only he knows. His directions are his alone, and mine are mine. Yet when we ask from a place of truthful togetherness, the plan gets bigger, more doors open, more possibility exists. It's that synergistic thing when 1 + 1 = 3. A sacred trinity to behold beyond the bounds of time and space. When I said yesterday morning I had to leave that very day to write this book, he simply set about packing my food for me. No questions asked. He just supported me in what had to be done there and then. So as we surrender to a bigger story together, just maybe we will find something extraordinary. A life of unfolding joy, wonder, and gratitude to be shared. Because I know that when we experience that much surrender together, the whole world will feel it. It will open the doors for more and more kindness, vulnerability, expansion, and joy for all, from a place of free will, from a place of choice. Amen, sister. There you go.
That was beautiful. So one of the things that I share with people is a story about the divine right partner. And you just named that story in your own experience. So what you and Clive have, I've told others, aim for that. That's the divine right partner, right?
Thank you. Yeah. And I'll tell you how we met. Because I'd been with somebody just before, and I had quite an amazing experience with him. And then I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to be with anybody else until I can have that, because this other one wasn't available. And so the very next day I was going, yeah, Providence moves. The very next day I was going to a workshop, a relationship workshop. I'd never done anything like that before. And I got partnered with this bloke, this man, who happened to be Clive. And part of the exercise, of course, was that we were to write down the list of all the qualities, really, really openly and honestly, that you were looking for in a partner. And go for it, nothing held back, right? Nothing held back. So we each had to write the list. You know what's coming next. So it's like, oh, now compare notes. All right, your list is the same as my list. That's a bit funny. It was like,
were you cheating? Were you looking at my list?
No. And then it was like the magnetism started to happen. There was this realization, there was this remembering, there was this recall. The big thing is when you write that list is that you can ask for all of these things, but you have to be willing to be all of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. You have to gift as part of the gifting and the receiving. And so that's when the real work begins. You can ask for all of that. And so women ask for all of that. Oh, but you've got to be that too. Oh, really? Okay. And so we moved in together fairly quickly after that. And it took a little while, but it was like the magnetism, it was literally palpable, literally like that. And then the work began. That was back in 1989. That's what I say to people, start with the list. Do you know what you want in a relationship? What does it look like? Don't just go, oh, I want this amazing relationship. Well, what does it look like? Can he clean?
I have an important point to make here.
Yeah.
So I've been married a couple of times. And the one before this, I did that. I made a list. Of course, we called it a marriage basket. That was our term for it. And so you made a list. You had a basket. It could look like anything. Of course, mine was wicker, right? And you make a list. Of course, it was wicker. And so you make a list of all of the qualities that you want, right? Never putting a not, always the positive qualities that you want. And down to the minute detail. And you put in little replications of things, like a house. You want someone who can provide shelter for you, right? So a house, a car, you want furniture in there. You want happiness. And so things that represent happiness, things that represent the things that you like to do, you want to have those commonalities. And so you just build this basket. So I built the basket. It was beautiful. And shortly after I built the basket, I met this person who was literally everything that I put in the basket. Yeah. But do you know what I did? I neglected to put some very important details in the basket.
Like?
And so I ended up with someone who ticked all the boxes, but someone who couldn't hold a job because I forgot to put how important financial stability and safety is. Someone who was extremely jealous of me, didn't want to share me with anybody. So I had no freedom. And someone who ended up, well, he was alcoholic, but he stopped drinking for a period of time, 8 years. And ended up being a cheater. And so there were some things that I forgot, some very important things, some deal breakers that I should have put on that list that I didn't put on the list, that I just took for granted that, if this person had all of these qualities, he would also have all of these qualities. But listen, the list has to be very precise.
It has to be very precise, and you can keep refining it.
Yeah.
And I could only write very precisely because I'd been married before, so I could refine it even.
Right.
And I spent 6 years on my own, having lots of, and so I sort of got a lot out of the way where I could go, right, now I'm ready for this.
Right.
Yeah. And so it sounds very trite, go write the list. But as you said, this is deep, deep, deep work, and being very specific for what it is, because you have to be willing to receive all of that you're asking for too. And so if you're asking for all of that and you can't receive it, then what's the, that's where the work begins in the relationship. Because he's there, he wants to give it, and you're not receiving it, so you've got to hang on in there. So just because you write the list and you come together like that's not all happily ever after. The work begins, and I'll say it in this: it's not that everybody wants this. This is not everybody's dream. It works for me. Right. I would rather be in a relationship like this on my own. And that's partly it's just part of this impulse to just keep refining. And that's my story. That's my journey. So it's not for everybody, but also be careful what you ask for.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it does get easier now because you can fine tune and you can laugh and you can, and you get it down to like we each have our own toothpastes, so you did like we each have our own way of doing things and our own space and my own deck. Like we don't cross over where I don't impose upon. And then there are the common areas, but don't share toothpaste in marriage. You're not going to put the lid back on properly. Or he's not. Unless you're very rare. There you are.
It is very interesting, and with age, you can look back on that sometimes, with age and say, I could have done it this way, but
yeah,
I look forward to.
We're in a situation where I have my own room. I don't have to sleep with him. And I know a lot of women have said to me, oh my God, I would love that, but he wouldn't let me. He would feel so offended. And you get to a point in your life where it's just about sleep. You just want to have a really good night's sleep. Plus, I like that level of doona and linen or whatever, and he likes that. So I have my own space that is mine. And if you'd like to come into my boudoir, you can, or not. And so it keeps that's beautiful, that space.
Jet decided to come in. Amazingly, I have met so many couples who do manage to exist that way. You wouldn't, it's not so uncommon anymore.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Because you want to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah. I'm going to have to put him out again. Go on out. Thank you.
So yeah, it's those sort of things would be taboo. People would think, oh my God, that's terrible. How can you not sleep together all the time? There must be something wrong in the relationship or the marriage. You go, no, actually, I have a different rhythm and routine. I want to read, I want to get up early or whatever. It works. We both get 8 hours sleep.
It creates healthy boundaries, and that is.
But also, I can't function if I'm not sleeping properly.
Right.
So that's the foundation of what's the foundation of a good relationship? Get good sleep. the rest, these fundamental things, really.
What's the old saying? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
That works both ways, though.
That works both ways. And one of the things I'd have to say that, I live in a and it must be the same in America, where in Queensland, where a lot of people come from down south, and then they come up in they're grey nomads. So they're traveling around all the time. They've retired and they go and do that. And, there's a park near us that I walk through, and he's there with his little barbecue and he's cleaning it off, and she's in there and she's cleaning the windows. And it's like you just feel there's a sense of familiarity, but there's a sense of utter boredom that we're doing this. We got the money now. I'm still alive. We're heading along. And this is not for all of them, but there's that he's still got his he's still got his barbecue, and he's still cleaning it up, and he's polishing the car, and he's proud of that. But there's a sense, or they'll just sit on the beach like that, and he'll have a beer, and and you go, oh, somehow the spark went out a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't want the spark to go. No. So there you are. Lots in that.
I know that they're going to enjoy watching it, which is why I love to pre-record these, because we don't have the interruptions of people saying, but what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
So that's why
it's such a, I can tell you this, but it's such a delicious luxury for two women of this age to be able to have this level of conversation that's pure and true and expansive and supportive, and has a level of generosity spirit that is respectful of each area of expertise that we work in, and yet that's full of that level of love, just that it's like, wow. And it's a real privilege. I find it at my age happening less and less, because a lot of women my age, my experience, don't want to have these deep conversations. So to do it in an environment like this is a real privilege. So thank you. Thank you.
I do. I don't focus on it a lot, but I do find that my circle is primarily younger than me.
Yes.
Primarily.
Yes.
I mean, there are, I want to say, just a handful of women who are my age, who are still expanding and learning and growing and experiencing.
And yet the younger ones coming through, they're hungry for what you have to say. And that is how it should be at this level of this crone, this grey-haired, this grandmother energy. It's like, wow. And yet they look at me and they go, I don't think of you as old. They're trying to be really respectful of me. And go, oh, okay. Yeah, we just love hanging around you, because it's really interesting what you say. I was like, oh, I'll take that as a compliment,
But what they don't know is, and I've heard this before, and I laugh every time I hear it. I'm in a 69-year-old body, but I feel 30. I think like a 30-year-old, or maybe a 20-year-old.
What we see out here, what we see out here, and how our mind works and everything like that is like, wow, yeah. And so, I sometimes catch a reflection. You go, oh, is that my mother? The body still has this sense like, oh yeah, no, that is like, no, oh well, okay, it is what it is. It is what it is. That's like, and then the moment you accept
I earned all of this.
I am this.
I earned all of it. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm going to be all of this. And the fullness that comes from the freedom of expression to wear what you want to wear is just, to just be you,
Right.
and I look at you in that fullness, and then that sort of radiance comes out with those incredible eyes, and you just go, wow, I just want to hang around with this woman because she's so interesting. And that's what we want to cultivate. We shall cultivate that, definitely.
We shall cultivate interesting women.
Interesting
Yes.
women, yeah, who age like a Grange Hermitage. I don't know, you could sort of drop some other wine in there, but it's like, yeah, mysterious, expensive, rich, full-bodied, all of that sort of thing.
Exactly. Technocrat women. Yeah.
No, take no crap, but who also give of themselves, who are very generous.
Exactly. I am finding, I had this talk with someone recently that and maybe even with you, that I'm finding that I'm collecting or attracting, not collecting, I'm attracting beautiful, loving, giving, compassionate people. I call them non-egoic, you know.
Yeah.
I must have built a filter up at some point that said, leave the ego at the door because we don't want it in here. It's not welcome. But I'm just so happy that maybe it is age, I don't know, but I'm just finding that people are gravitating toward me who want to do the work, who are ready to learn and expand and grow and experience. And they're not egoic about it. They're not tooting their own horns and saying, but I can do this and I can do this. Instead, they're saying, what else can I learn? What else can I do? How can I help you? Those are the people that I want to surround myself with.
Yeah, I would second that. It is. And to me, they are younger. And sometimes I have to sort of just go, oh, you're talking to me, that realization of, oh, I did do that. I did the work we did, got those results. And so I was like, okay, just because the gift for me, as we said before, is being received by somebody else, of being able to do what we so passionately love. And I don't use that word very much, but that just sets us on fire. And we absolutely love doing this work. For somebody to take that and go and do something with it and hand it on to their kids or whatever, it's like, wow, that was just brilliant. And you paid me. Wow.
Back when I was practicing massage, I did go to massage school. And back when I was practicing, or actually it was during school, we had this little saying, that if you were manipulating the body and the body cracked or popped, the saying was, look what your body did. Look what your body just did. It released. And so that's my outlook when I'm working with people. It's look what you just did, not look what I did.
No.
Look what you did. Look how you shifted that.
Yes. And then the moment you say that, the shine, the sense of like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. We are only here as those vessels to facilitate, because they're the best teachers that we had. In all the vast, we've got combined over 80 years, you and I, of experience of workshops and teachers, etc., etc. The only ones I ever stayed with were the ones who looked at me and said, you've got this.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with you. Okay.
Yeah.
And just listen to that inner voice. I'm not going to fix you. You have this. And they're the ones that totally stand out. And they're rare. But I feel that now, because as we've had all this experience and we can be at the forefront of this, that we're setting that rigor that says this is how it needs to be now. And the ones coming through are demanding that level of presence as well. I feel that I'd like to feel that they're becoming more discerning. So they will hold us accountable always.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking for people who don't want to be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, because it's a never-ending black hole, and it's the revolving door, and you just keep going back, because then they'll find something else to fix, and something else to fix, and something else to fix, instead of like, what if there was never anything wrong with you? Now, what you could generate with your life. Wow. How would that look? How would that look? And when that penny drops, it's like, oh, wow. Okay, now let's go to work.
Yeah.
That's right. And that is such, so when you step out of a session, or I step out of a session with someone like that, I am totally elevated. I haven't been sucked dry by somebody trying to pull off me. I can go out in the garden and just sit, with the roses or whatever, with a cup of tea, and go, all is well in the world. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. More of that, please. More of that, please.
Well, I have truly enjoyed the sharing. And I know that whoever watches this will enjoy it as well. So it's going to be posted on Facebook and YouTube. And I'm going to put your bio, your photo. I love that photo of you on the sofa, by the way. It's just so classic. And the colors are amazing.
That was my little modeling job. So I can thank my friend for that one.
Was it really?
Yeah.
So I need, I already have the link for two of your websites.
Manifestooflight.earth and lightandco.earth. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's quite a lot up on Instagram as well, with if they come off the lightandco.earth. Oh, both of them, both of the Instagrams linked to the one Instagram page. I'm not capable of handling more than one Instagram page.
I know I am too spread. I'm spread thin on social media. I can't keep up.
It's quality, not quantity, Patricia. We'll go there.
Yeah. I will put those links up, and I will send you the copy so that you can post it wherever you would like to post it.
I will.
And thank you so much for sharing so generously.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will savor this conversation for a long time. Thank you.
But see, they don't know we have lots of these conversations. So I get to talk to you often. So I'm gonna stop the recording, but don't hang up. So thank you everybody for joining me and Dee, and allowing us to share with you. And we will see you all on the other side.
Thank you.